Dun 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 dun. Hello, huge movie fanatic. Thanks stopping on by. This time I'm coming at you to review one of 2018's summer blockbusters by the name of Mission Impossible Fallout. So basically, I've been a big fan, or more or less a big fan of the Mission Impossible movie franchise ever since its debut in 1996. I still regard the first movie as being the best of the Mission Impossible films. For me, the 3 and 4 were absolutely fantastic, and the most recent one, 5, was not necessarily as good as 3 and 4. It kind of started a trend of a downward slope, in my opinion. Getting into the review, or before I start the review, let me just say that in my opinion, Mission Impossible, well, for all intents and purposes, this is also 6, aka Mission Impossible Fallout, is absolutely just, for me, the second one was the worst one until this one came out. This is just takes the cake as being the absolute just worst and most worst Mission Impossible film in my opinion, and just I think it's the longest one as well, and it's like at least 45 minutes too long in my opinion. It just goes on and on and on. So let's just get into the review before I start going on and on and on. Basically, this is the first, from what I know, this is the first Mission Impossible film to carry over a bad guy from the previous movie to this one. I think generally there's a different kind of a threat in each film. And incidentally, I think this is also the same director as the last Mission Impossible film, so there's kind of like a follow-through from the last one to this one. Not that it really makes any difference, because what they do with this movie, in my opinion, is absolutely uninteresting and in treading ground that's been heavily treaded in the Mission Impossible franchise already. Basically, at the beginning of the movie, we see Ethan Hunt having a nightmare about his wife from the 3rd movie and the bad guy from the 5th movie, and oh, it's so scary. At first you're like, oh, it's just a normal scene, but you quickly realize that because of what's being said, it's just, oh my gosh, this can't be real, or something's off here. And we find out that I think it's some nightmare that Ethan Hunt's having. I think he has like 2 of these with the bad guy like threatening his wife or former wife, whatever the hell part she plays in this particular installment. And when I first saw the movie, I kind of thought the beginning, when the movie was first starting, I kind of thought the beginning was kind of a cool twist, like what the hell's going on, oh, it's a nightmare or whatever. But now in retrospect, having seen the whole movie, I just look at that scene too and I'm just like, I don't really know what to say about this movie. For me, overall the movie is a series of extremely boring just dialogue scenes. It's almost like they entered a contest to write and film the most boring exposition scenes in cinema history, and they probably pulled it off, or very close to. Basically, the summary of this movie is just boring dialogue scenes, and then just overly just ambitious or overly loud, just breakneck chase scenes, then a boring dialogue scene, more about dialogue, and all it is just boring exposition through dialogue, and then just chase scenes, which are action scenes, most of which are kind of like chase scenes, which in my opinion really don't have any, aren't really necessary. The plot doesn't really necessarily call for these action scenes. It's just talking action scenes, and you're not invested, or at least I wasn't invested in the action scenes, because I just felt like they weren't connected to the reason why they weren't connected to the plot is because in my opinion there really isn't a plot in this movie, or at least one that interested me, or anything that's been anything of kind of anything new. In my opinion, this movie, thinking about it in retrospect after having seen it, it really, really, really plays like a movie that they just had, hundreds of millions of dollars, or $100 million plus of a budget to shoot this, but they had no script, and it really feels like a movie that's shot on the cuff, and where they're basically making up dialogue, on the day, or improvising it, and then just shooting any random kind of chase scene that they can think of, and then just the next day or the next week just shooting some dialogue in the most mundane, boring way possible. It was really, really, really surprising as this movie continued to wear on, how it was just so, in my opinion, just not interesting and just mediocre. I was really surprised. One thing that I do like early on in the movie, though, is something we really haven't seen since the first movie, where it's kind of like they fake out this bad guy or this informant, this guy with some information that they need, in a scene where I hate when they use actual real life news anchors in movies. You got this asshole news anchor guy who I'm not going to name because I don't want to name him because he's an asshole news anchor guy, but I hate when they put these real life news anchors in movies. It just pisses me off. But the scene itself is cool, where you think it's actually, you know, the good guys, Ethan Hunt included, are actually giving in to this bad guy's demands and reading this manifesto live on air, so the bad guy then gives them crucial information that they need, when in fact it turns out to be a fakery scene. And I don't think anything like this, you know, correct me if I'm wrong, but I don't think anything like this had ever really been done since the very beginning of the first movie, which was kind of cool. And then the famous line of "Did we get it?" and then "We got it" was kind of cool, and the walls all fall away from the set that they're in, and then it turns out that Benji was wearing a mask of this asshole news anchor guy. And so I mean that you know, there are a few bits and points of this movie that are cool, and that being included in one of them. Basically, I don't know, let me really briefly describe the quote-unquote plot of this movie. It's, you know, the bad guy from part 5 or whatever is you know, in jail or prison or whatever. He's just like a bad menacing threat throughout the movie. And yeah, I don't know, I can't really, I've told you guys before in reviews past that I'm not really good at on initial viewings, like actually, you know, getting all the plot points and stuff simply through dialogue, you know, that is talked through, you know, between characters in the movie. I'm rather much more, you know, good at getting plot points that are seen unfolding in front of me, and rather than just simply, you know, sitting there and telling the plot to the audience with the characters' dialogue. So I mean, the plot, I think, is about basically, I don't know, it's like the same outfit from the bad guys from the 5th movie, The Syndicate or whatever. I don't know if they're the bad guys in this movie or whatever, but some bad guys get a hold of, I don't know, I mean, the bombs, like, now this is really a new thing. It's never been done in a movie before. You know, these bombs got accidentally, you know, stolen by the bad guys, and it's like there's these 3 bombs or something like that. I don't know. I guess I really don't need to go into the plot because I can't really remember it, so I'd just be, you know, trying to remember what the hell I'm not even sure of, so whatever. So I mean, it's just a plot that, you know, it's just been done and done and done and done in so many movies past that it's just like, oh my god, you know, the good guy, quote unquote good guys, Ethan Hunt and shit, trying to get the bad guys bombs or whatever, and locating this and that. It's just like, it's just such treaded ground at this point. It's like, so I don't know, definitely someplace within the first half of this movie, probably within the first quarter of this movie, the scene in what I regard as the best scene of the movie happens, where it's kind of like the bathroom fight. And for a while this movie, you know, during this scene was kind of interesting. They had to basically, I don't know, from what I can remember or understand, they had to capture this guy, and so they could scan his face, so they could make a mess, so they could infiltrate something to find out something, of course. So they end up following this guy in this really noisy kind of club into the bathroom. And I must say, I'm not a bathroom enthusiast by any means, but this is a really, really handsome looking bathroom, and kind of 2001-ish, a Space Odyssey-ish, Stanley Kubrick kind of a bathroom. It's just all white, and it really makes you almost want to just live in this bathroom. It's a really, really attractive bathroom in this movie. But in my opinion, this is the best scene in the movie. It should also be said that, you know, the guy who played Superman and, you know, who's currently playing Superman is also cast in this movie. And I thought that was one of the better things about this movie. And you know, I thought that he, you know, cast in this movie as being a guy who was kind of on the good guy side towards the beginning and ends up being kind of like a bad guy at the end, was kind of a cool character. And I think the guy who played him is, you know, was a really kind of a, that was another thing that I thought was a nice addition to the Mission Impossible franchise, is that guy in particular, you know, playing that character. And I thought the character was kind of cool. But that bathroom scene is, for me, is the highlight scene of this movie, where it ends up being, you know, Tom Cruise and this Superman guy against this Asian guy. So it's like kung fu and fighting and stuff. And what I really thought was cool is Tom Cruise is always usually, you know, the badass guy who wins and stuff like that. This Asian guy was actually, I think, kicking both of their asses, which was really kind of cool. So this fight in this really, really immaculate, beautiful white bathroom scene was really cool. And it ends with this, if I can spoil it, with the, you know, with the Asian guy, I guess it's PG-13, so we just, you know, we just hint at it. But yeah, with the Asian guy being shot in the face or in the head or something, probably face, because there's a joke that's like, well, can you make the mask? Well, we need a face for him to make, to make the mask of his face. So that's kind of cool. And unlike, previous entries, I think that, obviously because this guy was ended up being shot in the face, they couldn't use, make a mask of him and do what they wanted to do. Usually they do exactly what they planned out to do, and it's kind of cool to have, things not go their way. It's kind of realistic and different and stuff. So that for me, the bathroom scene is the coolest scene in this movie. And then from then on, for me, it really, really just goes downhill. Not long after, there's the famous kind of, I don't know, I imagine it's purported to be like a real jump that Tom Cruise did out of a plane, or I don't know. Tom Cruise is becoming like Jackie Chan lately, and this movie is really overdrive, where he's just being all show off and stuff. So there's this scene where they have to jump out of the frickin' plane really, really high up, so high up there's no atmosphere, so they have to wear these masks, helmets with air and stuff. And this scene, which I thought was absolutely pointless, like why couldn't they drive to this location? But whatever, maybe it's a plot point I missed. But there's this absolutely just scene, just nothing, that in my opinion is there just for nothing else but just show offs, where he jumps, this kind of thing where they jump out of the plane and go through. It's kind of cool that they went through the lightning storm, and the Superman guy got zapped unconscious, if I'm understanding correctly, and Tom Cruise kind of revives him for some reason because he pushed him out. So I don't know why he'd want to revive him. Maybe he needs him for the mission or whatever. They end up landing on the building, I think, that they meant to land on. I can't actually remember anything more about that scene than that, but that scene is just kind of touted in the trailer and making of videos and all this stuff is just being like some big scene. And for me, it's just kind of there, unless I'm not understanding the movie clearly. I mean, it really, most of the action in this movie is there, just in my opinion, just to be there. And you really, as I said, as a viewer, I really wasn't invested in any of the action, except for the bathroom scene. I thought that was great, but everything else, or majority of everything else, I felt like was just there, just for spectacle and like wow factor, and let's, call Guinness and all that kind of crap. So, ooh boy. So I think some point in the movie after the jumping out of the plane scene, I can't even remember, as I said, what the hell that scene even leads to. Some point in the movie, that maybe it's coming on the halfway mark through the movie or something, there's this, of course. And I think they just did it in the last one, a motorcycle chase, I think, and they actually had the nicety, or the niceness to not having done, because the last motorcycle chase was in Mission Impossible 2, and they didn't do one, I think, until what was it 5? I don't remember. I think they didn't do one until Mission Impossible until 5, and now they're doing one again. And again, I don't remember, I don't remember what the chasing is about, but it doesn't really matter. It probably really wasn't for any good reason. But if I'm incorrect, I'll go on the record as saying that very well could be. I mean, this is a review on my impression of the movie, so whatever the movie is or isn't, I guess it doesn't really matter. This is just my impression, and it played like, whether there was a good reason or not for these chase scenes, it just didn't feel like it. It just seemed like, let's talk for a while. Okay, bam, we're into a chase scene. What I thought was, the chase scenes were done well. Don't get me wrong. The chase scenes were done well. The only thing that I didn't like about it is, just like the majority of the movie, except for the bathroom fight scene, I just didn't feel like invested in the chase scenes, because I didn't feel like they were necessarily a necessary part of the plot or whatever. Unlike kind of the end of Mission Impossible 3, when he's running really fast and he's got the bomb in his head thing or whatever, trying to get his wife and stuff, you're invested in that, because even though you know it's going to turn out okay, there's this, I don't know, for some reason, like some of the other Mission Impossible movies, the threat or whatever is just so much more dire, and you're more invested in it, even upon repeat viewings, even though it's going to turn out fine. Whereas this movie, I felt like I just, with the exception of bathroom scene, was just not invested in like anything whatsoever. And one thing that I thought was really lame about the chase scenes, I can't remember which one. I think the motorcycle one came first, where he was on a motorcycle, and then it seems like something happens where that scene ends. And then, like, moments later, within 5 minutes, he's like doing a chase scene with driving a BMW, and it's just like, I was like, we just had a chase scene. It's like, now we're going to do another chase scene. I just was really, really unimpressed with 2 chase scenes virtually in a row like that, and just being like, again, the chase scenes are done well. My only problem is they're right at one after another, and from what I can remember, there's really no good reason for them other than just it's an action, summer blockbuster action movie. We're gonna put a chase scene, or in this case, two chase scenes in it. And it's just like, oh my gosh, it's just like, just ADD inducing, just garbage. So this is also probably the most, towards the end of the movie, his wife character from the third film, and she made brief appearances, I think, in each of, in 4 and 5 as well, but this is the most heavily, her character comes, I'm not going to, bother talking about what the hell kind of part she plays in this movie. We'll just say simply that her character ends up, coming, obviously returning in this movie, and she does the most business, or has the most screen time in this Mission Impossible since the third one. Not that, like so many things in this movie, not that it's interesting or lends any kind of, importance to any of the, goings on in the movie. It's just kind of like she's there to be there. Oh, we liked her so much in the third one, let's have her back for some more stuff. She's just, like so many characters and so many scenes in this movie, kind of just there to be there and really serves no good purpose other than, oh, it's his cute, wife or former wife or whatever the hell her character is. It's just like, there's so many times in this movie where you just want to roll your eyes. You really end up looking possessed by the time you end up finishing this movie, if you can do that. It looks like you just have, white Evil Dead 2 eyes by the end of watching this movie. Another needless character that's, in this movie, I thought, is the mystery, kind of sexy mystery girl from the fifth movie. She's brought back. I know that a lot of people on forums and stuff after the fifth one came out were like, oh, she's so cool, we want to see her back. I don't know if that's why they brought her back, because so many fans wanted her back. But just like so many things and characters in this movie, she's back, but kind of serves no purpose. Where, in that movie, you didn't know if she was good or bad or good or bad. And it's ironically, you'd think she'd be nothing but good in this movie, but there's a brief point where she does the same thing, where it's like, oh God, we'd have a conversation with her, then there's an action scene and she's acting in a way that's like a bad guy, and then she turns up being good again, and it's just like, she's the character, we might as well just call her flip face, or, flip booty, or flip, don't know what the hell side she's on, just constantly, apparently flipping back and forth between good and bad, and what the hell side she's on, you never really know, and oh my gosh, So just like so many things in this movie, in my opinion, the character, the sexy character, was it Ilsa, I want to say, possibly her character's name is, from part 5, which I thought she was, obviously more of a necessary or a cool component of 5 because she was new to it, and I think, having liked 5 better, she was probably more of a reason for her character to be in the fifth one, although I think I remember being annoyed that you never really knew if she was good or bad in that one as well. But that doesn't happen as many times in this movie because she doesn't appear in it, I don't think, as much. But I think it happens at least once where you're kind of like, who the hell side is she on in this one? And it's just like, although her appearance is, I guess appreciated for just just looking at her or whatever, or some familiarity of a character from a previous film, in my opinion, it's like so many things in this movie, it was, her being in it is really not necessary. So, getting towards the end of my review, I'll comment very briefly, I hope to comment very briefly on the end of this movie, which is just like it seemed like the last 30 minutes of this movie is basically the end, quote-unquote climactic scene, where it's just like, I'm just so sick of these bombs that needed to be defused in movies and stuff, and there's no threat because you know what they're going to do it. And what I think was so stupid is basically earlier in this movie they say, oh, once these bombs, there's like 2 bombs. Once these bombs are started or triggered or armed, there's no way to defuse them, because if you go to defuse one, the other one knows it and blows up as a result of it. So they basically tell you, of course it's Mission Impossible, so I guess it's fitting, but they basically tell you earlier in the movie that, once they're armed, that there's no stopping them. Well, I guess that way the threat is more, dire, which, whatever. But it's really stupid to tell the audience you can't do this. Of course, like I say, it's Mission Impossible. And then, of course, not to, well, I guess I can, I guess I can spoil it and say, obviously, these bombs, the IMF team miraculously stops this from happening. I think that you basically cut the wires or do some kind of, impossible gimmick tree within like 1/10 of a second in order to achieve that. Like, it's impossible unless you do all this stuff that's needed, like clipping both wires and Tom Cruise flipping a switch, all within 1/10 of a second at the same time, even though they're, they have no communication or radio contact with Tom Cruise at the end of the movie. The last scene of this movie involves, basically just Ving Rhames' character and his Tom Cruise wife character, like trying to defuse this one bomb. Benji's, I think, in the other, with Elsa's possibly at the other bomb while Tom Cruise is riding on this, this cargo, wire of this helicopter, trying to climb up it and, get into it so he can, commandeer it to, smash the other helicopter full of, that's not piloted, but has the Superman guy with the, the detonator that Tom Cruise needs. So there's like 3 points, 2 bombs. Benji's on one, Ving Rhames is on the other, and Tom Cruise is after the detonator, and it's just like, oh my god. They probably thought that this was just going to be the most epic, cool ending. I was just rolling my eyes because, and apparently Tom Cruise, was purported to have learned how to fly a helicopter for this scene, and as a result, he just wants to just show off and offer what seems like 20-25 minutes of him just piloting a helicopter. It's like, yeah, after like, a minute or 90 seconds, we know you can do it. It's cool. We don't have to see you do it for 20 minutes. This, out of all the Mission Impossible movies, and Tom Cruise movies, or actually just Tom Cruise movies in general, is just the most blatant. I don't know if it's like the older he gets, the more it feels like he has to show off. But yeah, you can fly a helicopter. We're proud of you, man. But it's just, the end scene is just cutting back between, Benji and Ving Rhames on their, respective bombs, between Tom Cruise trying to do this impossible mission of getting, onto a helicopter that he can commandeer so he can get to the other helicopter, so he can get the, the switch or the trigger thing for the bombs. And I don't, it's just, oh my god, you keep cutting back and forth and you don't even care at this point, and it's just like the plane, helicopters crash, Countdown's been counting down for a while now, of course, and, obviously him and Superman guy have to have a fist fight on a mountain, and a lot of stuff that's reminiscent of the Stallone movie Cliffhanger towards the end of this movie with the helicopter hanging off the cliff, and, they lost radio communication with Ethan right at this critical moment, and they're like, well, the time's counting down, so let's all, I think Benji and Ving Rhames are in communication with each other, like, well, let's clip the wires at the 10th of a second mark, like right at the last moment before the bombs blow up, and just hope that Ethan, or we know that Ethan's going to also be doing at the exact same time, clicking the button or whatever on the detonator to actually, stop this impossible thing, which we've been told earlier in the movie is impossible to stop, the explosion of these 2 bombs. Oh my gosh, I'm exhausted thinking and talking about this movie. Very, 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 very unimpressed with Mission Impossible Fallout. It's kind of appropriately titled because it's just a fallout of all, creation or creativity and, imagination that really, I mean, the third one I think is fantastic. The first one's absolutely amazing. Third one was fantastic. Fourth one was great, and, fifth one was okay, not horrible, but definitely not that great. And this one is just like, oh my gosh. And of course, just like all the Mission Impossible movies, after the, after the thing is foiled and everything's happy ending and stuff, there was all this kind of, humor, just warm-hearted, just wrapping up at the end, and just like, oh man, it's just like way, way, way too long. I think I've already said that. Pretty sure this is the longest Mission Impossible movie so far, and in my opinion, it's at least 45 minutes too long. It just goes on and on and on. Possibly like this movie review. If that's the case, I apologize. I'm only going to be able to give Mission Impossible Fallout 1 star out of 4 stars. That might actually be a little high, to be honest. I was teetering between 1/4 or 3/4 stars out of 4, but let's just go 1 because the bathroom scene was really cool. And the chase scenes are cool for being chase scenes. My only problem with them is that it was like pretty much two chase scenes back to back, and again, I didn't feel like the chase scenes you were really, as a viewer, were really heavily invested in them at all, because it's like a plotless movie with chase scenes, in my opinion. So thank you very much for watching this review, and as always, we'll catch you on the next review.